Okay, let's think about this. What if you could live your life, spend your money, fund your lifestyle, and never actually have to sell your most valuable assets? Imagine that. All while seeing your wealth just keep growing.
Yeah.
Like turning your assets into some kind of infinite machine that just keeps providing for you.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a bit of a fantasy for most people, right? But for the ultra wealthy, this isn't just a dream. It's a real strategy they've used for a long, long time. Super powerful.
Right, traditionally with things like real estate.
Exactly. Appreciating assets like real estate. It's generally known as buy, borrow, die.
Okay, buy, borrow, die. And that's what we're diving into today. We're going to pull back the curtain on this traditionally pretty exclusive strategy. We'll show you how it works, why it's been so effective for, the rich. And this is where it gets really interesting. We'll talk about how Bitcoin is basically opening this whole thing up, democratizing it.
Making it accessible to pretty much anyone, potentially.
Exactly. So our mission today, unpack this blueprint, figure out the mechanics, and really explore what it means for your finances, maybe even how you think about money itself.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. The real estate version, how does that work? It's actually deceptively simple. 3 steps. 1, you buy an asset that goes up in value, hopefully. 2, you borrow money against that rising value. And 3, eventually you pass it on, you die. The core idea, the absolute key, is you never sell it yourself.
Yeah.
Not during your lifetime.
That's the crucial bit, isn't it? Because, for most of us, if we need cash, the first thought is, what can I sell?
Right.
And selling an asset that's gone up, that means taxes, capital gains tax. So why is borrowing the cheat code here?
Well, it comes down to taxes. Borrowing money against an asset you own, that's not a taxable event. The IRS doesn't see it as income. Think about it. So you bought property for $50 million. 10 years later, it's worth $108 million. That's a $58 million gain.
Huge gain.
Huge. If you sell, wow, you could be looking at a $17 million tax bill. Easy. But if you just borrow against it $108 million, you get cash to spend, maybe millions, and 0 tax liability on that transaction. That's the secret sauce.
Okay. And that ties into how they view cash too, right? It's not just avoiding the taxes.
No, definitely not. It's also about protecting wealth from inflation.
The silent killer.
Exactly. The wealthy, they understand that holding large amounts of cash, fiat currency, it's a losing game over the long run. That $50 million in cash today, 50 years from now, its actual purchasing power could be down 90%, 95% even, gone. Poof.
Wow.
So assets, especially appreciating assets, they're like a shield against that devaluation.
Yeah.
That's why they focus on owning things, not hoarding cash. Debt becomes a tool.
Right. So debt isn't automatically bad in this worldview. If your assets, say your real estate is appreciating at maybe 8% a year, then you can borrow against it for only, say, 2% interest.
The math works out pretty well for you. Your assets growth is paying for the loan and then some. The debt is actually making you richer. In a way, it's leveraging the asset's growth.
It's a totally different mindset than, pay off all your debt immediately.
Completely different.
Yeah.
And then comes the final step, the die part. This is critical for passing wealth across generations.
The inheritance advantage.
Exactly. When the original owner passes away, there's something called a step-up in basis. Basically, the cost basis of the asset, for tax purposes, resets to its fair market value at the time of death.
So all those years of appreciation kind of get wiped clean for tax purposes.
For the heirs, yes. So imagine that $50 million asset we mentioned, say, it grows over 35 years to, $740 million. Massive growth. Because of the step-up in basis, the estate or the heirs can sell that asset, pay off any loans against it, and pay virtually 0 capital gains tax on that huge appreciation.
So in that example, they'd inherit something like $647 million after paying off loans tax-free.
Pretty much, yeah. A huge amount. And what can they do with that?
Buy more assets and start the cycle all over again.
Precisely. It's how wealth gets perpetuated. But like you said earlier, there's a catch.
A big one for most people.
Yeah, accessibility. For real estate, you generally needed, a net worth over $300 million maybe? To get the kind of loan terms that make this strategy really sing. For smaller players, things like AELOCs or margin loans just come with much higher interest rates. Makes it tougher, less attractive, maybe impossible.
Okay, so it's been an exclusive club. Which brings us neatly to Bitcoin. The Bitcoin cheat code. This is where it gets revolutionary because Bitcoin seems to break down that barrier.
It really does. It potentially democratizes this whole strategy. That's the exciting part. For the first time, anyone, theoretically can start applying this, even if you're just stacking small amounts like $50 or $100 a month.
Right. You build up that Bitcoin stack over time, and eventually you can use the same buy, borrow, die logic.
And there's another key difference: Bitcoin's growth potential. Historically, it's been, well, explosive compared to real estate. We're talking average annual returns sometimes in the 20%, 30%, 40% range. Maybe more, maybe less, but historically much higher than, say, 8% for real estate.
So even if the interest rates on Bitcoin-backed loans are a bit higher for individuals,
The potential appreciation of the Bitcoin itself can absolutely dwarf that cost of borrowing. It makes the math work, even with higher rates.
this whole thing, it also forces you to look at money differently, doesn't it? The source material even calls it a kind of speculative attack on fiat currency. What's that about?
Yeah, it's a strong term, but it reflects a certain viewpoint. The idea is, instead of holding fiat, which, as we said, loses value, you hold a scarce, appreciating asset like Bitcoin. And when you borrow fiat against it to spend, you're not selling your Bitcoin.
Keeping it off the market, supporting the price.
Right. You're strengthening Bitcoin, arguably, by reducing the sell pressure. And simultaneously, you're borrowing and spending fiat, increasing its velocity or supply without necessarily adding productive value, which could be seen as weakening it. It's like choosing to store your value outside the traditional system and only interacting with that system via debt when you need liquidity.
It's a really different way of thinking, and apparently even the proponents involve their views. The source mentioned the speaker initially didn't even like borrowing against Bitcoin.
Yeah, they apparently thought selling bits for expenses was the way. But then, new information, seeing how it works, maybe seeing institutions do it, they changed their mind.
Which is a good sign, shows adaptability. And you see big players doing this now, right? Like MicroStrategy.
Exactly. They're a prime example. They hold billions in Bitcoin. Do they sell it when they need cash for operations? Nope. They borrow against it. They get the fiat they need, but they keep their Bitcoin stack intact, benefiting from any future price increases. It's the never sell philosophy in action.
So for an individual, the power here is, well, pretty huge. You avoid the taxes you'd pay if you sold, you avoid selling fees, you keep your Bitcoin, hoping it goes up more, and potentially, if Bitcoin really takes off,
you could end up repaying the loan with dollars that are worth much less than when you borrowed them, or the loan balance becomes just a tiny fraction of your collateral's value. Almost insignificant.
Okay, but let's get practical. There have to be risks. How do these Bitcoin loans actually work? What are the mechanics?
Right, risk is definitely there. The key concept you have to understand is loan to value, or LTV. It's simple. The amount of your loan divided by the value of your Bitcoin collateral, expressed as a percentage.
So if I have $12,000 worth of Bitcoin as collateral and I take out a $6,000 loan,
that's a 50% LTV.
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward.
But Bitcoin's price isn't stable, it's volatile. That's the big difference from, say, real estate maybe.
Huge difference. And that volatility introduces liquidation risk. This is crucial. Let's say your $12,000 collateral was based on Bitcoin at $120,000 per coin. If the price drops significantly, say down to $75,000.
My collateral value drops too, down to $7,500 in that case.
Exactly. And your $6,000 loan is now a much higher percentage of that $7,500 collateral. Your LTV shoots up. Maybe it hits, say, 80%.
And 80% is often a trigger point.
It's a calming threshold, yeah. If your LTV hits that liquidation threshold, the lender doesn't wait. They automatically sell some of your Bitcoin collateral.
Ah, they sell it to pay down your loan.
To pay down the loan enough to bring your LTV back to a safer level, maybe 70% or whatever their policy is. But here's the kicker. That forced sale, that is a taxable event.
Ouch. So you get hit with taxes you were trying to avoid.
And worse, you lose some of your Bitcoin, the very asset you were trying to hold on to. You're forced to give it up. That's the main risk you need to manage.
So managing that LTV is critical, but what about when Bitcoin goes up? That's the other side of volatility.
Right. That's where the strategy gets really powerful. Let's say Bitcoin's price jumps 50%. Your $12,000 collateral is suddenly worth $18,000. Now your $6,000 loan is only 33% LTV, 60K, ATK. It dropped naturally.
Okay, so my LTV is lower. What can I do then?
You have options. Really powerful options. Once your LTV gets low enough, say 25% or even lower, you could potentially do two things. One, you could actually withdraw some of your Bitcoin collateral, take it back in your own cold storage off the platform while still keeping the loan active and LTV safe.
So I get some of my Bitcoin back without paying off the loan.
Correct. Or option two, you could borrow more fiat against that increased collateral value, increasing your spending money, again, without selling any Bitcoin.
That sounds Amazing. But how do you prevent getting liquidated if the price drops? Can you be proactive?
Absolutely. You don't just have to rely on price increases. You can actively manage your LTV by, say, paying down small amounts of the loan principal using your regular income. Yeah. Maybe $500 a month or whatever you can afford.
How much does that help?
It helps drastically. Every dollar you pay down directly lowers your loan balance, which significantly lowers your liquidation price, the Bitcoin price point at which you'd get liquidated. You might start with a liquidation price of, say, $75,000 based on our example. But making regular payments could push that down to $68,000, then $50,000, maybe even $30,000 over time.
Wow. So if you push the liquidation price low enough,
and Bitcoin's price stays well above that level, then yeah, you reach a point where the risk of liquidation becomes extremely low. Functionally, you might feel like you never have to pay back the full loan principal because your collateral value is just so much higher.
Okay, let's zoom out. Long-term vision. How does this actually build that infinite fiat machine for, regular people? The power of consistent stacking.
It's pretty amazing when you run the numbers, even with small amounts. Let's say you stack just $100 a month for 10 years. Okay, so you put in $12,000 to, $100 a month for 10 years is $12,000 times 2, so $24,000 invested. Sorry about that. 24K and
$24,000 invested.
Yeah.
Okay.
By 2035, based on some projections using historical growth patterns, the Bitcoin could be worth maybe $50,000. At that point, you could probably take out a very safe, low LTV loan of maybe $1,200, or push it a bit for a $5,000 loan if you need more liquidity, all without selling.
Okay, that's after 10 years. What about longer term, like 30 years?
Yeah.
Say just $50 a month.
$50 a month for 30 years. That's only $18,000 total invested out of pocket. Peanuts, really, over 30 years. But by 2055, again, projecting historical type growth, that $18,000 investment could turn into a Bitcoin portfolio worth something like $2.42 million.
Whoa, okay.
Seriously. And from that $2.42 million stack, you could potentially borrow, say, $500,000 at a reasonable 20% LTV. Or be super conservative, borrow $125,000 at a tiny 5% LTV. That's significant life-changing liquidity generated from just $50 a month.
The power of compounding and a potentially appreciating asset. It's wild. What if someone just bought, say, one whole Bitcoin today and never bought any more?
Even that scenario is powerful. Buy one Bitcoin now. Hold it. Don't add another Satoshi. By 2045, if Bitcoin appreciates at, let's say, a conservative 25% per year on average, that one Bitcoin could be worth over $10 million.
$10 million.
And against that $10 million, you could easily take out a $200,000 loan. That's only a 2% LTV. Extremely safe. Minimal risk of liquidation. Huge spending power unlocked.
It feels like this has to change banking eventually, right? If Bitcoin becomes the sought-after collateral.
Oh, absolutely. As banks and financial institutions get more comfortable as they see Bitcoin's price generally trending up against fiat over the long term, they're going to want Bitcoin as collateral. They need collateral to issue new loans, to create new fiat. Bitcoin could become the pristine collateral they crave. They might start offering, royal treatment to Bitcoin holders to get their business.
You could see a future with Bitcoin mortgages.
What?
Using your Bitcoin stack to secure a home loan?
Definitely. Bitcoin-backed mortgages, maybe with locked-in rates because the collateral is so strong, it seems like a logical next step. It would make this strategy even more mainstream.
Okay, so let's try and wrap this up. The big picture here is that this buy, borrow, die strategy, it's not just for billionaires with real estate anymore.
Not potentially.
Yeah.
Bitcoin opens the door. It lets you live your life, spend money, consume, without selling your prize asset. You sidestep the taxes, the fees, you keep growing your wealth.
It's an incredibly powerful idea.
It is. But we have to stress again, the risks are real. Liquidation due to volatility is the main one. You have to understand LTV. You have to manage it. Keep it low if you want to sleep at night.
Right. Be smart about it. Understand the game. And it's interesting. This whole strategy relies on the current fiat system, borrowing dollars against Bitcoin. But if the world eventually moves more towards a Bitcoin standard,
then Bitcoin just is the money. You wouldn't need to borrow fiat against it in the same way. The strategy itself might become obsolete, in a sense.
So the ultimate play right now might just be buy Bitcoin, hold a Bitcoin, and maybe use this borrowing strategy strategically while the fiat system still gives you that advantage.
That seems like a reasonable takeaway. Use the tools available now, understand the long game.
Fascinating stuff. Really shifts your perspective on assets, debt, and, money itself. What's the one thing you think people should really take away from this?